Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this real deal conversation on demystifying sustainability and social impact. This is a really special moment for us as a group because this year marks the first 10 years of our Good and Green journey. And as you will see on the slide that will come up on your screen in just a second, we've achieved some of our milestones. We've missed a few, but we've definitely learned a lot along the way. So to celebrate all of this and to kickstart our campaign in which we will share our learnings and highlights over the coming weeks, today's conversation with Nisa and Balram will demystify some of what we mean by sustainability and social impact. Nisa, Balram, thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation today, and welcome.
Thanks, Gayatri, for having us here today. Excited to be here.
Great. So the past 18 months, I think safe to say, have underscored how volatile and uncertain a global context we live in, and the increasing importance of placing people and planet alongside profit. Both of you have championed this for Godrej, and we're privileged to have you share your views with us today. I will ask a couple of questions in common to both of you and then move on to some specific ones. This is being live streamed on Workplace. So everyone watching, if you have questions, please do put them in the comments box on Workplace and we will pick them up from there and weave them in. So diving right in, question to both of you. What does sustainability and social impact mean to you as an individual, as a parent, as a business leader, or as a citizen? Nisa, if we can begin with you, please.
Yeah, sure, Gayatri. I think, I love this quote, Gayatri. Is it echoing? Sorry. I love this quote which says to who much I'm echoing. Is it me or
Balram, if I can
maybe
request
Balram?
you to just go on.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah, that's better. Balram was echoing me. I won't do it to you, Balram. So I was saying, Gayatri, I love this quote which says to whom much is given, much is expected. So I think for individuals, who've had access to education, or for companies like Godrej, which will, be 125 years young next year and have benefited so much from being part of India and, now a global ecosystem. I think it's extremely, extremely important for us to keep people and planet alongside profits. And I think it's very, very much doable, correct? And we should always keep this idea of trusteeship. Can you leave something better than you found it? And obviously, in each generation, in each decade, what you need to do might change. So I think things like, there's so much focus on COVID right now. And I remember reading somewhere that someone, climate change needs the same PR person that COVID had. Because if you think of climate change, you think of pollution, you think of issues with our education system, correct? Which are just going to get deeper because schools have been closed for 15 months in India. These are big, much bigger than COVID actually, problems for us to solve. But because they're not immediate and in our face, and maybe some of us who are privileged don't see some of this so closely up front, we tend to ignore them. I hope COVID is really like a line in the sand where we realize that we need to wake up to, look at Mumbai, we've had 3 cyclones, which didn't happen before, 3 years in a row. So all of this is really staring us in our faces. And we must change quickly. And COVID has taught us with this very quick vaccinations, this ability to work from home, that innovation can solve these problems. So I think, as a parent, I think it's this idea of hopeful realism, like, whether it's with your children, with your team, as a, corporate citizen, everything is not okay. Some of it's really bad, but we can be hopeful because there is innovation, there is things that we can do, whether it's on plastics, climate change, some of the solutions are immediate, some are a few years out, but we must change, and it's possible, and we shouldn't be. Let's not wait to be, at the brink of disaster to make some of these changes happen.
Thank you, Nisa. Balram, if I can request you to unmute and weigh in.
Yeah. So I think I agree with Nisa that COVID has changed our thinking to a certain extent. But I also must tell you that it has also awakened us to how we have abused the planet and how we are abusing our natural resources. Now, since you asked me as a parent, I must say that at least urban India, the younger generations are more switched on environmental issues than us and what we were at this age a few decades ago. In my house, I can see that there is a big change in the way they react to the way I worked. And let me just tell you that I had a very bad habit of keeping the air conditioning at 18 degrees centigrade, and Nisa knows it because that was one of the extra costs the organizations used to pay to keep me cool. But today, I think both my kids have made sure that air conditioners are locked at 24 degrees centigrade. You won't believe that I have not taken a printout for last almost 6-7 months because printing is banned at home. They said that if everybody can read this screen, so can you. And I think this change is only positive change, I would say, as far as COVID is concerned. So I think there is a lot of realization that all is not well. I come from, most of our businesses are part of food chain. As Nisa said, the climate change is hitting us in our face, 3 cyclones in Mumbai. And there are no predictive models now. And in one of the webinars, I said that all meteorological departments will have to change their models because whatever they're predicting is not coming true. If a month ago, everybody said we are going to have a normal monsoon. We rejoiced when we had an early start. Now we have a 15-20 day dry period. And nobody is able to explain why it is happening. So I'm saying that this is staring in our face. And if we don't react to it and respond to it, I think we are in very serious trouble as far as food production is concerned. I think as managers, I think what we need to do is that we have to make it a way of life. I am very glad that when this journey started, most of us thought it is just one more initiative, but I think you and your predecessors have all pushed the envelope very, very seriously, and what we have achieved has given us a lot of confidence that we can achieve much more. I think huge amount of empowerment has happened, a lot of ideas have come. And I must say that rural India is closer to sustainability than urban India, if you really ask me. Because if you ask me, chemicals and fertilizers, etc., only about 150-year-old. Still, in world farmers were able to keep feeding people. Of course, there were famines, and because of chemicals, we have generated a lot of surpluses. But I think the time has come to find right balances, and I'm very glad that we have undertaken several of these initiatives. And I have traveled a lot of rural areas in the world, and let me tell you, the farmers have a lot of traditions which are sustainable traditions. You go to Eastern Europe, you go to Eastern Asia, you go to Latin America, Africa particularly, everybody has soil conservation and water conservation methodologies which have been passed from generation to generation. In India, you go to any rural area before monsoon, the whole village joins hands, every house contributes man days to make sure that all water bodies are desilted and all tributaries to those water bodies are clean so that they can gather as much water as possible. But let me just tell you that I think those traditions are very valuable. We just have to mix new technology with old traditions, and watershed development is one such technology which is a great intertwining of old tradition and new technologies to create a bigger impact. So I am very hopeful that these kind of things are being realized by everybody, and I think organizations like ours have the responsibility, as Nisa said, for pioneering all this. And I'm very sure we will be a beacon for a lot of other organizations to follow.
Great. Thank you for that, Balram. It certainly sets the bar high for us. One thing you mentioned was that sustainability is not necessarily something new, and that, there are older sort of traditions and practices in sustainability. Like this, there may be other misconceptions that you often hear about sustainability and social impact. So, question to both of you, and maybe Balram, if you want to sort of continue, what are the other misconceptions you've heard about sustainability?
Okay. So everybody feels that it is a cost, and we also came from the same thought process till we started. And I must also tell you that regulatory framework is also needed to probably realize the benefits. And today I can say sustainability is likely to be one of the best businesses for us in time to come. We will do great for the planet, for the country, for the communities, and we will also make money. Let me just give you a few examples. I think we started a journey of green energy, and today I'm very glad to say 65% of the energy we consume in Godrej Agrovet is renewable. And the cost of this electricity is close to about 4 rupees 50 paisa a unit. And we buy from the grid, we are paying anything between 8 rupees to 10 rupees. People don't realize that when we buy at peak hours, we pay surcharge and surcharge on surcharge and agriculture cess, etc. Sometimes the cost of electricity is 10 rupee unit. And this saves almost $1 million for us per annum in Godrej Agrovet. And the effort is to keep on increasing solar energy footprint as the regulatory environment is in most of the states. So I'm saying that this is one of the examples. The other example is we have become carbon positive because of our afforestation in OPP, and I'll elaborate on that in future. What plan is it? And I'm telling you that one of the source of income for us in future is going to be, we will be carbon positive and we'll be selling carbon credits on the international market. We made some effort a few years ago, but I think this market will sophisticate. So definitely, I think this is one of the things that it is only a cost. I disagree totally with it. And the other thing will be branding benefits. I'm saying that Nisa would like to elaborate more, because if you see, sustainable oil palm is more expensive than normal oil palm. And Unilever pays us much more than they pay the others for buying oil palm, particularly in India, because it is all afforestation. The second myth is it is not measurable. And I think that would have been correct 10, 12, 15 years ago, but there is so much of data which is generated. Technologies have evolved. We can measure the benefits. And if you see, tangible benefits can be measured because Jan-Dhan accounts are there. We have more ways of measuring farmer income and production and productivity improvement. Apart from that, there are wonderful proxies also can be used, because I'll just give you an example. 10 years ago, I was called by one local politician in our Tumkur factory. And there was a school where it was a scheduled tribe village, and the attendance of girls used to be 15-20%. And he had the solution, but no money, that we just have to build a toilet. So I'm saying that we just contributed about 2 lakh rupees from our CSR fund. Attendance went to 80% because people started coming to use that. And then I went there and I said, why did you put a mirror? And suddenly somebody told me that suddenly everybody wants to look good also, because people were so poor that they were not able to afford mirrors also in about 12, 13, 15 years ago. So I'm saying that these things are proxies which can be used to measure that. So I think, and another thing, evolution, which I also see is that there are credible NGOs also. So I think that has changed. A lot of educated people are dedicated to NGOs, and it is a sustainable livelihood for them also. So I think that is why more and more people are joining hands, and very, very credible people are coming. So I think these are certain things which have changed over the last 10 years, and this is just the beginning. I think this movement will only grow.
Thank you, Balram. Wonderful. So it is cost effective, it is measurable, and there are credible people and organizations working in this space. Nisa, any sort of common misconceptions that you often hear about sustainability and social impact?
Gayatri, one is really what Balram commented on, that there isn't always a green premium. I wouldn't say that it's never there. Obviously, if you're buying sustainable oil palm, there is a green premium right now. But I think when I look at emerging markets, so I look at India, correct? And if you look at emerging markets versus the West, we tend to argue that we also need to burn coal, cut our forests, do all these things because, you know, that helped in terms of economic growth. And these Western countries had the sort of benefit. So I think, yes, we need growth, but we shouldn't be defensive about it because, you know, what technology was available to us 50 years ago is different than today. So I think countries, if they are forward thinking, if they are, you know, we should be like China has become, you know, the solar energy sort of captain of the world. We should look towards these things, and you need innovation, correct? The land you need for oil is still much less than you need for a wind farm. You can't store, you know, wind it cheaply. So I think it's, you know, some of the answers are there, some of them are not, but we should not be defensive would be one thing. And then, you know, when I look at say FMCG, we should not develop products and consumption like we have in the West, correct? We have an opportunity not to spend millions of dollars advertising sugared water and then, you know, say, let's take sugar out because a bit of sugar out because we have a health crisis, and let's take a little bit of plastic out because, you know, it's causing pollution. So why not? And I think, say, magic hand wash is a good example of innovation, correct? It upgrades a consumer from a bar soap to a more hygienic product, which they deserve. Consumers, you can't put the green, you know, we look at, say, something like sanitary napkins, you can't put the green thing onto a 14-year-old girl, say, keep using cloth because that will be sustainable. Because some of our old practices are more sustainable, but from a health or a modernization perspective, might not be, you know, might not be aspirational for them. So if you look at magic hand wash, it costs me less than soap, costs the consumer less than soap, gives them a better experience, has a smaller footprint in than bar soap, and I make more money than I do than on bar soap, correct? So I think that is what we should aspire to in terms of bringing all these things together. Yeah. And then I think, you know, sometimes there's just so many things to solve, correct? And sometimes people just throw in the towel because they feel like whatever you do is insignificant. And I think that's also a misnomer that, you know, it's single drops fill a bucket. And so I think that's something for us to always keep in mind, that even at the individual level or the corporate level, we can really make a difference. So we must do whatever we can to make a difference and encourage others around us to do the same. So, you know, not let people be pessimistic, because if you don't show up to change something, it won't change. But if you do, at least you have the chance to change it.
Yeah, wonderful, Nisa. Thank you for that. I think, you know, really interesting that what we consider to be sustainable, you know, might not, you know, or might not always be the most healthy. What we consider to be not sustainable might not be always be the most healthy thing. And I think plastics are a really good example of that, where, you know, yes, there is a waste issue with plastics, but it's also one of the most environmentally efficient materials to produce. And so, you know, linked to that, Nisa, I wanted to ask you about plastic packaging coming specifically under the regulatory radar for a couple of years. You know, as a FMCG for GCPL, you know, consumers are also, some section of consumers are also asking for a shift to cleaner forms of plastic. What implications does that have for GCPL, given that our focus is on making high quality products that are also affordable for consumers?
So I think, you know, plastic packaging is obviously under the regulatory radar, but it is also, in a way, an amazing material, correct? So I think we have to just sort of focus on this, you know, reduce, recycle, and reuse, correct? So it's not, I don't think it's just per se just that plastic is a problem, but it's how we're using it, correct? And how we're building the models for it. So I think compliance, we've been taking back 100% of the plastic packaging we put out. So I think continuing to do those sort of things, with our community waste management, we've, recycled 3,500 metric tons of waste. So I think we need to manage waste. So really recycle. We have to reduce our footprint. I think as we do product development, as we do these LCAs on our product, really focus on sort of how do you compress that? What are the opportunities to take it out or have it reused?
Thank you, Nisa. Similar question to you, Balram. And I had a question to you on organic farming. There are these studies that say that it is can be profitable for small and marginal farmers, especially. And Atul has asked a great question on workplace, which is linked to this. Do you feel there is a need to reduce chemical pesticide usage? And I will add to that, is organic the need of the hour, or is it just a fad? Over to you. Your thoughts.
Balram, you're on mute.
So before I come to organic, let me tell you, I cannot even think of life without chemicals. Now, one of the big advantages we have in India or for developed world is that we are at least 3-4 generations behind in all technologies as compared to the developed world. Let me give you an example. Now, as Nisa said, that the benefit of technology will come, and that we can see in electricity. Now, a lot of countries like ours are jumping from coal to solar. We are missing gas and atomic energy in the middle, isn't it? So I'm saying this is the, I would say, late movers advantage in a lot of things, which has come to advantage of several countries. Similarly, in chemicals also, chemicals are a part of life. And let me just tell you that our per capita consumption is lower than the world per capita consumption of chemicals for food production, number one. Number two, as compared to developed world, we are using about 1/6 or 1/7 of what they are using per acre. But the benefit we have is that as the developed world is coming up with green chemistries and safe chemicals, we are also adopting them very, very quickly. So that is one of the advantages underdeveloped countries have, because we have missed a few chemicals in the middle, which were less harmful and come to green technologies very quickly. And that will happen in future also. I must also tell you that we cannot wish away chemicals, because there are a lot of, you must also remember that 85% of the world is poor and 80% of world's farmers are marginal. So there are chemicals which are a little harmful, but they provide a solution in 200 rupees an acre. And the chemical which is a safer chemical provides a solution in 1,000 rupees an acre. And affordability becomes a very big problem for people in Asia, America, Latin America, and Africa. So we cannot wish away. The only thing is that usage of safer chemicals, and once they're off patent, I think China and India start manufacturing it, costs come down. So it's just a process. Having said that, I would say chemical use will increase, but the greater proportion of chemical use will be safer chemistry than green chemistry. So this I can see, but it is not going to happen in 5-10 years. This is a process which will take a few decades. That's point number one. Point number two, organic has a very big problem. The problem with organic is both in production as well as market access. And production, because one cannot have organic in small farms, because if the neighbor is spraying chemicals, all the pests will come into this organic farm and eat away and cause damage. I have seen that in organic vegetables, 100% losses in pest attack within 2 nights, because once the caterpillar comes, it eats away vegetable, and what you have left is only the shell. There is nothing inside. It's a huge loss. So it is It has to be done on community scale or big farmlands so that you are protected. So that is number one. Number two, market access is very poor. There are so many places people produce per force organic products. Now, one of the things is that, productivity is 20-25% less when you produce organic products. Now, the problem is that they get the same price in the market as compared to others. So there is a big loss. So market access is a very big problem. The third thing is that credible certification is a big issue. So I think that is one of the things which is holding back organic, particularly in several developing countries. So my sense is, and data is saying something else now. While people talk more about organic, the acreage under organic farming is coming down throughout the world because of the reasons I have told you. So unless and until there is a sustained effort, it cannot happen, and there has to be some kind of a market premium on this, because organic farming is more expensive than normal farming. That's point number one. Point number two, having said that, at least in animal agriculture, I am seeing a lot of self-regulation coming in through EU initiatives, through a USDA initiative. A lot of countries like ours are also learning. You'll be very glad to know that use of antibiotics in feed is almost negligible in the country. And we are also mandated our operators in the industry that I'm saying therapeutic use of antibiotics will have to be done. India is full of diseases, you know that. And our children, like, we cannot even dream of life without antibiotics, similar with animals. But now increasingly people are using gut-acting antibiotics which don't interfere in human beings, in spite of the fact that it is not regulated in India as yet. The way it is regulated in EU. So I think there is awakening. The only thing is that we just have to give time, because India is a poor country. We cannot impose solutions which are unprofitable for the lower strata of the society, particularly food production. So organic, I don't know, it will gain momentum, but it requires very, very sophisticated supply chains. There should be source to sink relationships which should be managed. And my sense is that contract farming is a great solution for organic agriculture.
Thank you, Balram. Thank you for those candid views on organic and sort of the toss-ups between organic and the use of pesticides and chemicals. Nisa, specific
I think,
question.
Gayatri,
Yes.
one of the things that we have to be careful of is, when you talk about chemicals, and people talk about chemicals as all bad and natural as all good, correct? I mean, snake poison is also natural, and you definitely don't want that in your body. So I'm not saying that they're not bad chemicals out there. I'm not saying they're not side effects to chemicals. I'm not saying that we shouldn't work to better chemicals and green chemicals, and that innovation is happening. But we have to be very, very careful of painting it with broad brushstrokes, correct? Because the history of science and chemicals has taken our life expectancy up from the 30s or the late 20s to the 60s and 70s, even in poor countries. So whether it's in medicine, the Green Revolution was not based just on chemical fertilizers, but a whole set of practices that meant people were not starving. So science and these synthetic molecules that we produce, it protects people against malaria. It does all sorts of things. And the natural alternative sometimes is not just more expensive, it's not as good. So I think we need to have very, very thought through and actually scientific debates on some of these issues.
Absolutely, Nisa. And, really sort of ties into the next question I wanted to ask you, which is, how does a business, especially an FMCG business with the purpose that we have at GCPL of bringing the goodness of health and beauty to customers in emerging markets, how do we communicate all of this, all of our progress on sustainability in these aspects that you just spoke about more responsibly for the consumer? So the consumer also understands, things like plastics and so on. But what you mentioned, that these are ultimately our household insecticides portfolio is protecting people in the domain of public health.
Yeah, so I think now digital gives us that opportunity. Our government relations give us that opportunity. Our ability, to actually explain to consumers or the government, investors, other stakeholders what we're doing, being open to their feedback, and so I think this is something extremely important, that we need to be working with all stakeholders to explain the benefits of products, whether they have chemicals or not. I mean, you might have natural products that you need sort of registered, but this is something that we must, continue to reach out to stakeholders about.
Great. Thanks, Nisa. Balram, question for you on agriculture and the greenhouse gas emissions that agriculture and allied industries contribute, which is pegged at a quarter of all global emissions. There have been studies, that say that this is more than all of global transport combined. How does an agribusiness then think of sustainability? How do we see what do we see as our intent and ability in this space as Godrej Agrovet?
Yeah. So I think this is a problem which is exaggerated. And let me tell you why. And let me tell you with data. So 13 to 14% of total greenhouse emission because of human activities is because of animal agriculture. It's not that we are contributing 70-80%. And I think that is not too much, considering 7 billion people have to be fed thrice a day. Isn't it? That's one. Second thing is, I must also tell you the big contributors are the rich countries who have large expanse of land. So let me give you some data, is that India produces about 14 million tons of greenhouse gases out of the close to about 100 million tons the world produces. Look at the data now, because we have such a huge population, but we are only about 13-14% of the total greenhouse gas emission because of animal agriculture. Now, the bigger countries are to be blamed more because they have a lot of land. And more the grazing, more the fodder, more the methane production. Now, for example, India produces less methane per animal just because feed industry is developing fast and it are more fed. We don't have lands where animals can graze. So that is one positive side. So I'm saying that, yes, definitely it is a problem. Animal agriculture definitely is sending a lot of methane in the atmosphere, but it is only 14% of the total methane being generated because of human activity. Now, 80% of the farmers are subsistence level farmers. It is very difficult to bring change because the solutions right now are not very economical solutions. So it will take time, as we have been saying, that we have to bring technology into it. There is a huge amount of research which is happening in Western world, and by nutrition, by dietary controls, etc. But I must also tell you that there is a scientific community which is working on a vaccine in animals which can bring down methane production. So science definitely will have a solution in future, but I don't see that happening just because affordability of these dietary change solutions is a problem for majority of the people. So we at Godrej Agrovet, we are the feed millers in this country. We are the largest sellers of cattle feed in the country, and it has already been proved that if you feed the animals more feed and less fodder, the methane production is less. The only thing comes back is that how many farmers can afford that. So I think this is a battle which will continue, and I believe that the way Western world is taking it up, I think scientific solutions are not too far away.
Wonderful, thank you. Nisa, Balram mentioned, the product that Agrovet makes in the form of animal feed being better for the planet in terms of methane emissions. We had this Vision 2020 goal of creating good and green products. and we don't seem to have made much progress, or definitely not measured it very well over the past few years. I wanted to, you spoke about magic earlier in this conversation. Any thoughts from you on, what will be the focus on, good and green or green products moving forward?
Yeah, so I think, I mentioned doing sort of product life cycle assessment. So I think we need to focus much more on doing that. I think we need to sort of align our product development with sustainability much more strongly than we have done in the past. So I think this has, definitely sort of tied in, needs to be tied in much more, and is sort of being learning. But I feel like this whole purpose of bringing the goodness of health and beauty, I think goodness also means, doubling down on sustainability. So I'd love to see more products like magic, more products, 30% of GCPL's portfolio is, protecting people from vector-borne diseases. So, they're good products. We need to make them greener now. So yeah, I think you'll see much more focus, and much more, like we put this sustainability committee at the board. So we're kind of re-looking at how, we measure this, and, what you measure happens. So I'm looking forward to that going forward.
Wonderful. But we're all looking forward to the amazing innovations ahead. I'm going to just quickly take a question from Apurva Kothari on Workplace, who asks, for environmental protection efforts are to be taken now for an effect in the future, how difficult is it to convince people and partners in our effort towards towards being good and green in a world where people expect immediate results? I can say it's tough, but any thoughts from the both of you?
I'll let Balram take this one.
So I think very, very difficult, because removing antibiotics from feed is something which different associations are trying for last 10 years. And the only thing which I can say is that science will come to these solutions, because 10 years ago, the feed cost would go up by about 3% if you removed antibiotics and put probiotics. I think that is a substitute. Now, the cost of probiotics has dropped by almost 75% in last 10 years. And suddenly it has started making sense. So one of the things is that it is easy to convince people to adopt these practices when economics is right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, practices are something, I think, the responsibility of organizations like ours, and I'm talking about the pesticide space, is that a lot of good companies in this country and almost all multinationals, we are introducing new package of practices of integrated pest management, which uses several things at right time in the right proportion. And it is an integrated package which is given. So instead of one chemical finding a solution, it is a mix of chemicals and management practices which delivers much better and much more economical solutions. So I can definitely tell you that these are time-consuming things. These are things which require a lot of effort, and a lot of effort by all companies together. And I'm very glad that pesticide associations do it very, very diligently. And I can give you an example also, which we are doing, and I think industry is also following that now. And the pilots have started not only by us, but several other people, but it takes time. But there is nothing better a successful demonstration with the quantitative data. So I can take that example later, or I can give that example right now, how a combination of different things is helping.
Please go ahead, Balram.
So let me tell you this, in India, the most expensive pulses is red gram. And we all know that red gram grows in central India. And the big problem with the red gram is that the pollination is a very big problem. So because we have to pollinate the male and the female so that you get this flower, and then it becomes a pulse. And it used to happen that the pollinator was the solitary bee. So bee does not, this bee is a lone wolf, and it lives in crevices under the plants, etc. And one of the big problem is that we used to, it attracts a lot of other insects. In order to kill those insects, we were killing that bee also. The pollination was a problem, and our productivity was 400-500 kilos per acre. And that is why it was always not very attractive crop to be in spite of it being very expensive. Now, how science has helped, the safer chemistries have come, and safer chemistries were introduced, which does not kill this solitary bee, but kills the other insects which damage this. Now there is a big pilot on with several companies and several partners that we are putting bee hotels. So it will be a surprising thing for you that we put a box and that produces bee, and all these bees go and pollinate. And I'm very glad to say that this experiment was done by Dharwad Agriculture University in India successfully, their PhD thesis, and we have taken the same people and we are putting this pilot at several places along with several other companies. But look at how science and advancement of science is solving this problem. My sense is if 25 to 30% and maybe 40% increase in productivity can happen if it is handled well. So these are the things. It may take 3 years, it may take 5 years, but at 25-30% productivity in a farm, which is normally pulses are grown by marginal farmers. Just see the kind of impact this will make. The chemical is cheaper, the bee is free, and productivity improves significantly.
Wonderful. And is there a sort of positive impact in farmer income from the sale of honey as well?
No, they are not honeybees.
Okay, got it.
They are solitary. So
understood. All right. So they don't, there isn't that aspect to it, but the yield does increase and it does have a direct impact.
But Gayatri, one great thing about Indian agriculture is that the worst thing you can do to a farmer is show him another farmer with the same resources and access to same information and making more money. This guy cannot sleep because all these people are entrepreneurs, they are self-employed. So they'll figure out what to do next. That is why, and because of communication, I think the spread of technology is becoming easier.
Yeah, great. A question to both of you, and one that we may regret a little later, but felt that needed to be asked. What do you find frustrating about sustainability and social impact? Nisa, if you could go first, please.
I think sort of behavior change, correct, and how long it takes. So I think the, changing, unless you have something like COVID, where even then people don't wear their mask, but you say shocked into working from home or wearing your mask or you think about washing your hands as a defense against disease. It protects you against so much, but it took COVID to really sort of really get that message home. So I think behavior change, it takes a while, and you have to stick at it. And then sometimes there other issues connected, interrelated issues, especially when you're looking at social impact. You want to get. I remember there's this the Poverty Lab, the Avijit Banerjee and Esther DeFolo, and they have this poverty lab, and they were studying in Africa, getting sort of kids to school, and why were they not coming to school, or why were they not succeeding? And basically it was a nutrition deficiency, correct? So they just needed to be given a multivitamin, not a multi, but it was some, whether it was zinc or calcium or whatever, I can't remember. And that intervention really made sort of things move. So I think it's behavior change, but then there are all these interrelated things, which makes it frustrating. And then just how long some of these things take, correct? So even if you look at Embeda malaria program, it's a 3-year implementation cycle. So it takes 3 years to really get that data sort of back in terms of the impact you're having, correct? So I think the time and the behavior change would be for me.
Yeah. Balram, what about you? What do you find frustrating about sustainability and social impact?
So I fully agree with Nisa, and I think it is a long journey. All players in the game want very quick results, which are not likely to happen. Because I agree with Nisa that it is a change of habit, and in spite of such big things like COVID happening, we still find it very difficult for people to change their habits. So it will be a journey, and I think frustration is part of the investment we have to make in this as business leaders. And I think the only thing what I feel will deliver is a sustained effort, and more people will connect with it. Seeing is believing in everything, which I have seen in my sector particularly. And once people see the advantage, then these changes are irreversible also, because economics and safety and health is such a great determinant of our behavior. So I think I think we just have to be patient, and that's the way I look at it.
Right. You mentioned different stakeholders having different expectations. Balram, could you also talk a bit to how can other teams outside of sustainability teams engage more with our good and green progress, or even own some of it?
I think I always uh, use one sentence, and I think that is where we have been reasonably successful, considering the kind of investments of time, effort, energy Nisa and other promoters and the leadership team have made. I think people do a lot for money, more for a person and everything for a cause. And I think that in case we are able to inculcate this cause thing, and because I'm saying that in our MBA classes, we have learned about superordinate goals, and at some point in time, they start motivating people. And I think that is one thing which I always believe, if we can keep on harping on this and include more and more people in this initiative. Now, if you see people in field, people in sustainability were deeply involved, but Godrej Volunteering Day involved many more people who were not directly involved in all those initiatives, isn't it? And I think these are the kind of efforts and small efforts which need to be made, small bits and pieces, some nuggets of information, of changes people have made and the kind of benefits people have seen, isn't it? This will make a lot of difference. So I'm saying that it is just that we just have to make sure that people think it is much more than what they are doing in a daily routine, and the kind of long-term impact it'll make. And as Nisa said, that I think it is trusteeship which needs to be spread.
Wonderful. Nisa, over to you.
Yeah,
How can
I think Gayatri, I think more teams can be sort of get involved by, really defining what our goals are. And I'm in a meeting. Sorry. Okay. I'm in an interview. Okay. That's great. Congratulations. Sorry. What was I saying? Yeah. So I think like, Gayatri, when I look at sort of um, dry hair, our hair, high fashion business in Africa, correct? There's no legal requirement right now on the reduce, reuse, or recycle of the products, correct? But I think is one of the biggest players in the market for that business team to hold that challenge, that innovation challenge in terms of how you recycle, what sort of fibers really let you. I think it's a really like an innovation sort of game. So I think, and that can't be done by a sustainability team, correct? Because that's not your usual stuff that you've been doing that people know how to do, correct? Whether it's watershed management or the other thing, because this is a relatively, the industry itself is only 25 years old. So I think it's how we define what we want to do and how do we hold it with business, and it should be these things that are more sustainable, serve the consumer, and are more profitable for you. So I think defining more goals like that will definitely help. And I hope, especially I think the world's been through so much. I think these volunteering activities, helping our communities and stuff, I hope we can do more of that. And I think it'll help people, because I think really focusing on your own suffering and the own joy, because everyone's been through something, but really living from gratitude and being able to help. And if we can do more of that as an organization, especially post-COVID, I think it'll be very meaningful.
Thank you, Nisa. With that, I will ask my last question, which is, imagining yourselves 10, 20 years maybe in the future, what would you be really proud of us having achieved as a group in sustainability and social impact? Nisa, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for me, I think the number one for me would be sort of innovation. So, I'd love to see a whole basket of sort of magic type of products, correct? So, really doing FMCG in a new, more sort of sustainable way. So, I think that would be, something that I would love to see. I think going beyond our sustainable packaging goals would be a really big win, being part of the innovation around plastics, so I think that would be, I think would really help us be a global leader, not just in plastics, but in many ways, if you can use innovation to solve some of these. And then I think for GCPL, this India's fight to be malaria free. So, whether it's with InBed or a lot of the work we're doing on Goodnight, and also as we build out a household insecticide business in Africa, I'd love to see us make a huge impact on that.
Great. We've definitely got our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
Balram, do you want to add to that, please?
So I think my first obsession is with green energy, actually. So, and I strongly believe water and energy should be a very big focus for everybody in this world, because I think fossil fuels, etc., will cause the biggest damage, have caused the biggest damage, and will continue to cause. So I'm saying that's why I love Elon Musk, because of his electric cars, etc. So my sense is that we should be adopting several new technologies and upgrade technologies so that we become very efficient in usage of water and energy. And I am very sure, because I have seen the solar space for last 15 years, how year after year the efficiency is increasing. At one time, solar energy used to cost 16 rupees a unit, and today it is 2 rupees 75 paisa a unit. So I think my sense is that machine technology, particularly motors, plus energy generation technologies will improve dramatically. And I would like to see us double our efficiency as a group in time to come as far as energy consumption is there. I would also like us to be water positive, and I think it is not very difficult to do that, because technologies in water harvesting, etc., are improving significantly. We would like to be carbon neutral and positive after some time. We should definitely minimize emissions, but also offset emissions through our oil palm plantation business, where we plant almost 6 lakh trees a year, and we have been doing that for about last 15, 16 years, and now which is a initiative which is counted in carbon sequestering, if I'm not wrong. Gayatri, you can second that. So I'm saying that all these things will definitely help us provide leadership to several organizations in this country who probably don't take it very seriously, or do not have the resources or the bandwidth or the inclination to start on this journey. And I think we should be a guiding force for such organizations. Plus, I would definitely like to see our IR integrated rural livelihood project to be successful. We have seen improvements in productivity and farmer income, and you all have generated very good data there. So I see a lot of promise there. And my sense is that this can only grow and we can make a significant impact in all the areas we are operating in.
Great, thank you. Well, that brings us really to the end of this Real Deal conversation. Lisa and Balram, thank you so much for, your wonderfully candid thoughts, all the learnings in this conversation, and your leadership in ensuring that good and green and sustainability and social impact remain core to us as a group. As we mentioned, this is the beginning of our campaign on 10 years of good and green, and we've set our vision for the next 5 years, some of which encapsulates what both Nisa and Balram shared, and we look forward to partnering all of Godrej in achieving these goals. Thank you so much once again, both of you.